they've got people talking about it. But I see what you mean as well, and how other people could see it as like just purely performative. It's
Hmm.
like, okay, you've done that, but what's the action that you're taking as well, and what action are you suggesting? It's a bit like, I think there's parallels with the people that will share in their stories, like, look at these shocking things that are going on around the world. And so, okay, I get it, you're trying to draw attention and you're adding this, you're showing that you care about it in some ways, but actually at the end of the day, has that made any difference because you've shared that in your Instagram stories to your 500 followers? What are you actually doing to reduce the suffering in the world? Same with these people. What are you actually doing to affect climate change? And this is maybe the frustrations of people. Like, okay, you've done that action, but what are you actually doing? And also, you're just kind of annoying people. If you lie down in the middle of the road, you're just disrupting people who aren't like the main culprits. They're not, they're not to blame. It's other people that are to blame. And so, oh, there's a whole load of stuff, isn't there?
It's so hard because if you think about it, I think if you were to ask those protesters, the ones that lie down in the road, right? If you were to ask them about the impact that they're having on, say, ambulances being able to get through, I, I would be very surprised if their goal or their, focus was genuinely just to disrupt. And I think that that's where it's in the kind of the psyche of the nation. That's what it's become. And so, actually, the thing that has happened, as opposed to what they really wanted was for us to all go, this is a nightmare, and we need to all collectively band together to point
Mm.
towards and hold the people to account that are in charge of this. I think it's interesting you talk about the action. See, the call to action for people wasn't wasn't as strong as it could be, but I don't think that's necessarily their fault. I think that the call to action was that we should all wake up to kind of what is going on here, and we should all be on the same page. The difficulty comes is that um, we in the UK, you're in Birmingham, I'm in Manchester, we don't think as a collective that we are seeing the impact of climate change. So
Mm.
you're asking people to um, and I mean that on our doorstep. We see it in far-flung nations, and that feels very distant, feels very disconnected to us. If we were facing things on the front line that we could, you could really, it would be really hard to argue against. So occasional every couple of years a big flood. I think people can quite quickly go, that's just bad weather. I think if we were really facing it and really seeing impacts, it would be a very different situation. That call to action, people would be much more moved by the
Mm.
action that these groups were taking. The difficulty that they faced is getting people to be engaged and to be really switched on with a subject that isn't necessarily hitting them in their hearts and minds. And that's the bit where PR, I believe, has the ability to engage people's hearts and minds. You have to be able to sit down and talk to people and get them to realize why a subject matters. And I think
Mm.
that's been the bit that's missing. That's been the bit that's missing. It's been shock and awe and disruption and whereas there needs to be light and shade. You need to have different levels of discussion with people, and hopefully that's what we'll start to get now. That's what we'll start to
Yeah.
get more of the come with us, as opposed to we're gonna lie down in the road and stop you from getting
Yeah.
to work.